What do I think about when I hike alone? Usually while on the way up in the steep spots or even just going up like a simple fire tower road, I usually think, why the fuck am I doing this? Most of the time, that's what I'm thinking. Why the hell am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this crap? And usually it's because of the beautiful, stunning view at the top, or when I get to the balsam smell towards the top, or just listening to the sound of some of the birds like the thrush singing around at me, or just hearing the wind is absolutely breathtaking. Welcome to Inside the Line, the Catskills. What's going on, everyone? This is Inside the Line, the Catskills. I'm your host, Stash, if you don't already know. This podcast, this episode is going to be a little different than the previous ones. I do not have an interview for tonight. I had some crazy weeks in the past couple of weeks. I went to the Finger Lakes for a vacation. I came home and then I had to go to the ER for a little problem with my stomach. I had diverticulitis and stuff didn't feel right. So I had to cancel my interview with a person that I look forward to doing an interview with, Sarah Bacon from Scenic Route Guiding. I can't wait to do that interview, but I had to cancel that. And then 3 days after that, I had to go down to New Jersey for an amazing wedding from my wife's cousin that got married, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So I had to cancel my interview last week, and we'll reschedule that again. But this week I'm going to do a solo podcast, which feels pretty weird, just doing it by myself. And it's almost like when I first started doing everything by myself, testing everything by myself, and it just felt odd. So, but the cool thing is that this episode is me solo, and it's also going to be about hiking solo. That's the hot topic of the night, hiking solo. So yeah, first off, I would like to thank a sponsor. Recently, like last night, I got an email saying that somebody has supported my podcast on my website, and I was just like, no way, this can't be real. But indeed it's real. So I would like to thank our first supporter, and it's basically a monthly supporter. So Katrina Weinig, thank you very much for supporting Inside the Line, the Catskills. Please get a hold of me if you're listening to this. I'd like to reach out to you and thank you personally for supporting this podcast. Cheers to you, and thank you very much. I'm not really drinking anything tonight. I'm having water once again because hopefully my stomach will get back to normal if I drink a lot of water. So yeah, so cheers to the water. I haven't been on any hikes lately. Let me correct that. We did go on 2 short hikes in the Finger Lakes with my friend Chad. We were up there for his wedding reception. They had their wedding last year, and of course through COVID they couldn't have the reception, so they had it this year. And we went up there and took 5-6 days off and went around the Finger Lakes. We tried to do 2 hikes, but it started pouring raining at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and by the time we went out at like 9-10 o'clock, the streams were flooding. So Chad took us to 2 places that I've been to with him that are absolutely phenomenal, and we can only go not even a quarter into the hike, and we were shut down by raging torrents and nothing that we could cross. Usually you go to these places and you get your feet wet, and then you check out the beautiful 60 to 90 to 100 foot waterfalls in these areas, and these massive gorges. This was based outside of Naples. If you ever get a chance, go up there, check it out. Naples, New York, and the Finger Lakes. It's absolutely stunning. Beautiful small town, massive gorges, massive waterfalls. Great place to take the kids sometimes to a certain point. But yeah, we got flooded in, but we enjoyed our time with Chad. And Chad, once again, hopefully if you're listening, thank you for an awesome time. We had a great time at your wedding. We had a great time hanging out with you. And I say we as in me and my wife. So let's this session is going to be probably a little bit shorter than normal. Usually it's around an hour long, but I have a feeling this is going to be a little bit quicker because it's just going to be me tonight. So let's kick in some Catskill history. All right, tonight's Catskill history. This is about one of the biggest person that has stepped foot in the Catskills and built an industry in the Catskills, Zadlock Pratt. Some of you might have heard of him because of Pratt's Rock in Prattsville. Prattsville is basically named after Zadlock Pratt, or he named it himself. I got almost all my information from an amazing book called The Catskills, Its History and How It Changed America by Stephen M. Silverland and Raphael D. Silver. Check out that book. Awesome book. I've read the whole thing from front to start to end, and it's an amazing book that tells history about all of the Catskills, which is absolutely phenomenal. So let's begin. Zadlock Pratt, who was born in 1790 in Stephentown, New York, saw his first earnings from pickling and peddling wild huckleberries. At the age of 20, he was apprenticed to a Greene County saddle maker, which led to his becoming a journeyman saddle maker under his father's wing for a mere $10 a month. $10 a month, wow. With the money he saved after a year, he went into business in the Catskills with his older brother Ezra and his younger brother Bennett, starting a small tannery that shuttered just in time to avoid ruin caused by the Great Depression following the War of 1812. The tanning industry took raw animal hides, which were sourced internationally, and produced treated leather. We'll talk about the whole tanning industry in a little bit and how that works out, because it's not complicated, but it can be if you don't know what you're talking about or you don't know what you're listening about. 10 years later, with his $14,000 from fur trading and the manufacturing of ash oars, which are paddle for a boat, that he sold to the U.S. Navy, Pratt, feeling what he called half rich with $14,000, drove a one-horse wagon into the Schoharie River Valley in Greene County. There in the tiny village of Schoharieville, later to be called Prattsville, he bought acreage that formerly belonged to the heirs of Johannes Hardenberg's brother-in-law and began work on a new tannery. I didn't look up Johannes Hardenberg if he had to do with anything in the town of Hardenberg right outside of Big Indian, so I'll have to look into that later. So unfazed by Schoharieville's long distance from the Hudson River, which hindered the transportation of the rawhides from the river to the tannery and back again as finished leather, Pratt accurately observed, "It's easier to carry the hide to the bark than the bark to the hide." On November 17th, 1824, to celebrate the completion of the dam that would supply power to the tannery and show the locals he was no ordinary tanner, Pratt swam the length of the Schoharie kiln in the freezing cold. His tannery, which would become the largest in the world at its time, opened 83 days after the spring thaw. In addition to the Prattsville facility, he built tanneries in Windham and Sampsonville, New York, and Aldenville and Gouldsboro, Pennsylvania. Pratt kept his men satisfied with lives of hard work and small pay. Also in Pratt's employment were those seasonal workers considered the hearts of Catskills and tanning industry. They were called the peelers. Peelers would go out first of every May, and these set out into the forest, peeled away the hemlock bark up to the first limbs, leaving the rest of the tree to rot, then stacked up the bark in cord piles to dry before hauling it to the tanneries. There, a water-powered mill resembling a huge coffee grinder transformed the bark into a fine powder that would be taken to a leach house to be mixed with boiling water and left to steep for about a week until it turned the liquor used to tan. Tanning itself, back in the days, was exhausting. You got to haul 100-pound water-drenched hides on the production line before pounding them into supplements with huge water-powered hammers studded with multiple iron pins. Next came the removal of the hair from the exterior layer with the harsh lime solution. Only one second layer, known as a true skin, became leather. The treated hides were soaked for an average of nearly 6 months in vats containing the tannin distilled from the hemlock bark. Finally, after rinsing in clear water, they were ready to be transported from the Catskills to what they call the swamp in New York City. That's where the tanning wood trading would take place. It was also named because tanning's abysmal byproducts, its noxious odors and waste, made the area smell like a swamp and even worse. You can probably hear my dogs right now barking at absolutely nothing because it's completely black outside. So those dogs can be a handful. So yeah, the swamp has also became by the middle of the 19th century, had become the largest leather market on Earth. Hauling them all the way from the Catskills down to Lower Manhattan to the swamp has got to be fun and exhausting. One time, just before the Mexican-American War in 1846 to 1848, the Hudson River was frozen, so the hides could not be brought down via slop as they normally would. Pratt knew that the city was running low on available leather, and he knew that prices were very high because of the gearing up for war. So he loaded up the sleds, brought down his own hides, and drove them right into Lower Manhattan. There were comments in the papers about his arriving with 4 horses and looking rather stately atop his tanned hides. The words used to describe the horses were proud and iron gray. As a boss, Pratt prided himself in training his employees in the fine craft of tanning, as he was hands-on, standing alongside his crew of 60 from the time they awoke at 5 to 5 every morning before a hearty breakfast together. At noon, they shared a full-course meal of good boiled beef, pork, potatoes, turnips, cabbages, wheat bread, and butter, and sometimes even roast. And after working through the afternoon, the day shift went home to their families to be bed by 9, according to Carolyn Bennett, the director of the Zadlock Pratt Museum in Prattsville. So check that place out. It's pretty neat. I like it. Pratt purposely situated his mansion only a certain walking distance from the factory, so that should a work stoppage by the night crew arise, he could hear the machinery grind to a halt and rush over to handle the problem. So he was very, very into this tanning. In a trade rife with secrets, Pratt openly shared his details about the tanning process with anyone who would listen, and where most tanners exhausted the hemlocks in their area and then closed up shop, leaving behind shantytown and jobless workers, Pratt arrived in Schoharyville and told few families that then living along the Schoharie Creek, "I come to live with you and not on you," and he kept his word. Prattsville became as known later on as the gem of the Catskills, and it really is a gem of the Catskills. We'll talk a little bit about Prattsville. I drive through there almost every time I go through the Catskills. Pratt built one of the first planned communities in the United States. He wanted a town where workers would come to their wives and children, and bankrolled 100 homes for his workers. He endowed 3 churches, 2 academies, and an opera house. He funded the town newspaper and the printing plant, which was the first printing press in the Catskill Mountains. Streets were lined with shade trees, miles of bluestone sidewalk were laid, and Pratt financed a woolens factory, a cabinet-making facility, 2 match factories, an oilcloth factory, a machine shop, and foundries. He opened a bank that printed his own currency with Pratt's picture on it, and his banknotes traded at partly with the U.S. dollar and were redeemable at Wall Street banks. Were someone in need of a loan, Pratt studied his face and hands, and if the face appeared honest and his hands showed evidence of hard manual labor, the loan was granted. Once driving near Prattsville, Pratt encountered a sad-looking boy from Oneonta, my hometown, who had taken a large flock of sheep to New York on behalf of some chiseler who made a false promise of payment on a ticket home. Now on foot and hungry, the youngster told the story to Pratt, who, according to folklorist Alf Evers, was not the kind of man to let a mere empty pocket stop him from giving a hand to a fellow mortal in trouble. Pratt picked up the flat stone from the side of the road and scratched a check on its surface. "Take that down to my bank in Prattsville," he told the boy, "and they'll give you cash." What an amazing guy. That's someone you would want definitely running your town. Though it failed his 1848 bid to become New York governor, Pratt, who tired from tanning in 1859, claimed that his leather furnished the soles of 10 million pairs of boots and shoes, and that if the skins he tanned were placed in continuous line, they would stretch 13,000 miles and cover 700 square acres. Toward the end of his life, in an immodest bid for immortality, he hired an itinerant stonecutter to carve a memorial to himself in the Catskill mountainside 500 feet above the town that bore his name. The crude rock carvings, which still can be seen and are still there, include Pratt's bust, rendering of his tannery, a horse, a hemlock tree, a brawny arm holding a sledgehammer, and the self-invented Pratt family coat of arms. Its description, "Do well and doubt not." So if you're ever around in the Prattsville area, check out Pratt Rock. It's not even a quarter of a mile hike to the amazing stone carvings. Plus, you go up above the stone carvings, you'll get a beautiful view of the Schoharie Valley. And check out the museum there in Prattsville. Check out the waterfall in Prattsville. Very beautiful place. Prattsville also is still recovering from the great Hurricane Irene of 2011. It was hit the hardest by the hurricane. So go there, check out the place, purchase stuff in the town, go in town, have something to eat, check out Ace Hardware, check out the grocery store in there, buy whatever you can, support the town. That's what I say. So that's tonight's history about Zadlock Pratt. So check it out. So let's get on to our topic of the night, which is hiking solo. Now, I see a lot of people online and ask me about hiking solo because a lot of people fear for hiking solo for some reason. But someone I understand. My first hike ever in the Catskills, my first 3,500 hike ever, was solo. Surprisingly, my wife let me go, which was pretty weird. But I did a lot of research. I did a lot of planning for it. I was nervous, but I did it and I survived. And the funny thing is, I wasn't fully prepared like they tell you to do online because you know what? This was probably 6-7 years ago. I started hiking in the Catskills. I've done earlier hikes, but they were nowhere as serious. So I wore, I believe it was khakis and a regular cotton t-shirt, which you shouldn't do. But you know what? I survived. I had fun and I pursued it even further. But, people, ask a lot. I see a lot of questions on Facebook book groups of people asking about hiking solo, and they don't want to they fear hiking solo, and they want buddies to hike with. And you know what? I understand. The thought of being alone in the middle of the woods scares people. It scares people a lot, especially, not to be sexist, but women. I understand, definitely. We definitely have thoughts that can sometimes get stuck in your head while you're hiking solo. It's completely silent. You got the wind and maybe some birds chirping, but that's about it. So stuff gets going in your head. What if the bear's out there? What if there's a pack of coyotes out there somewhere? Biggest probably thought of some people when they're hiking solo. What if a serial killer is out there? There are definitely a lot of thoughts going through your head. And one of the bigger ones, what if I get lost while solo? So there's a lot of thoughts that are going through your head when you're hiking solo. Some people think, different trails might lead to different places, or they don't see a marker for a certain amount of time. They think they're lost, but that's one of the biggest ones. Definitely is getting lost is a definite fear and a thought of when you're hiking solo. To be honest, of the hundreds of times I've hiked in the Catskills. Mostly in the Catskills because every other place I go to, I go outside of the Catskills. I go with my wife. I'd have to say 65% of the time I've been out in the Catskills, I've hiked solo. My days falls off on weird days. My days off fall on weird days, Tuesdays and Sundays. So most people don't have Tuesdays off. So I usually go hike solo. If I do it on a Sunday, it's usually with my wife or a SAR team member, or I have a SAR drill. So I'm usually busy on Sundays, or I'm being occupied with somebody else on the trail on Sundays. But most of the time spent on the trail is a Tuesday by myself. And you know what? I love it. I think hiking solo is great to get connected with yourself. And to me, it really strengthened me on further hikes. And it gave me a lot of confidence, especially after doing several of them. I probably did 13 solos in the beginning of my 3,500 pursuit. My first hike was Balsam Mountain, and that was solo. So, yeah, I find hiking solo great. And I find it, like I said, a way to connect with yourself. So, let's talk about what is needed, what is prepared, what you should have when you're hiking solo. Of course, the 10 essentials are needed. Food, water, emergency shelter, extra layers, a multi-tool, navigation, illumination, first aid, fire, and heat and sun protection. We'll definitely go on to those later on. We'll talk about more and more into that stuff. One of probably the most important factor that you must consider when hiking solo is the proper gear. One of the biggest necessities while you're on the trail alone: water, of course, food, and for me, footwear. Proper footwear with good traction and good grip will possibly save your life. You have your crappy footwear, you're going to be slipping all over the place. In the Catskills, there's rocks everywhere. Small slip, you can break your knee, you can break your ankle, you can break, anything when you're slipping down a massive rock or a big boulder or a steep section. And if you have the proper footwear, some grip, that might not happen. So why not go out there and get, I know it's tough, but, go out there and get an expensive pair of shoes that have great traction on it. And those slips will not happen, or they might lower your chance of getting injured on the trail. So that's a very big important factor for me when I'm hiking solo, is that I chose great traction for hiking and comfortable shoes for hiking. I wear shoes, and I might switch to boots in the winter, but it's usually shoes. But definitely great traction shoes helps hiking solo because it gives you confidence of going up those steep sections that might be slippery. Another one to consider is strong and sturdy backpacks. I've gone through several backpacks. I kind of overdid it when I started. I bought a 65-liter backpack for hiking a day hike. 65 liters. 65 liters will basically carry you through a week's long expedition while hiking. So I don't know why I got such a big one. Maybe because I, overthought it and I wanted to be prepared. But, it didn't do bad. It didn't do bad at all. It carried a lot more than I needed to. So over the years, I've, taken it down a bit. I went from a 65 down to a 60, and it was a lightweight one. And then I found out, it wasn't really supportive on my back, and it just kept pulling me back. It wasn't that great. So I went on to a more expensive backpack. Instead of going cheap, I went expensive. So I found out that, to be honest, the more expensive, the better. The recent one I got was a while back, was a 55-liter Osprey. And I even take this on small day hikes. Most of the time you don't need to go that big, but I do carry extra, I do carry extra gear while going hiking solo, just in case something happens, number one. Number two, in case somebody else needs help on the trail. But yeah, I've found out with hiking, going cheap is not the good idea. Found out with snowshoes that the cheaper the snowshoes, the crappier the snowshoes, more stuff will break. Like I said, shoes, I started off with just regular hiking shoes from, I don't even know where I got that from. But I started off with just regular crappy hiking shoes, and they broke within, 3 or 4 hikes. They ripped apart because I was using them too much. So I went and got me a good expensive pair of shoes that have, I believe this one is last over like 60 hikes. So I can't even imagine how much that 60 times like 5 miles is, a good amount of over 200 miles. So I've found out with gear, going cheap is not the way to go. You want to go expensive and what's comfortable. The more expensive means the more reliable it is. So yeah, there's a couple thoughts from hiking solo. So let's talk about the 10 essentials that you definitely need on a hike. Number one important thing is water. Water. Stay hydrated. I usually carry with my expeditions, even though, it might be a 2-3 mile hike, or it might be, a 10-12 mile hike, I still carry the maximum amount of water I can. I have a 3-liter bladder, and I usually fill it up to 2 or more, depending on the heat of the day. And then I have 2 side pockets full of, one of them I usually carry Arnold Palmer iced tea for my lunch. And then usually the other one has a Smart Water bottle with water in it. So usually sometimes I carry 2 to 5 liters of water for just a day hike, which is crazy, but still, water is very important. You stay hydrated, you stay focused, which is really good because you want to stay focused on the trail so you can get down to steep areas, or you can hop over rocks or stuff like that. So you don't want to get all delusional and start getting dizzy and then fall, and all of a sudden you've broken your knee. So water, definitely one of the most important things, top 3. Second on the 10 essentials, food. Food gives you energy. So food is a very important thing. I usually have my lunch, which is usually straight up peanut butter sandwich, just peanut butter. If you've talked with anybody that hiked with me, or anybody that's hiked with me will just tell you that my peanut butter sandwich is absolutely insane. It's probably an inch of peanut butter, and then the bread. It's absolutely freaking delicious. I love it. Peanut butter is very good for energy. It's protein, so a lot of protein definitely on hikes. I usually have 2 side pockets on my backpack that have snacks in it. Usually my friend calls them old man crackers, peanut butter crackers or cheddar cheese crackers in the backpack. And I also have with me usually potato chips or Doritos or something like that to go along with the lunch. And then I always carry some sweets with me. I have Sour Patch Kids, which people love. Big bag of M&Ms, like a $9 bag of M&Ms every time. Skittles, more crackers, stuff like that. Energy bars I usually have. I carry a lot. I've just realized how much I freaking carry. Wow. I have energy gel packets just in case. Once again, sometimes I'm going on a very long bushwhack. Want to keep that energy flowing. You want to keep that energy high so you can stay focused on the trail. So yeah, carry as much food as you can, or prepare for the food for the day. If it's going to be hot, you want more food. If it's going to be extremely cold, you want to have a decent amount of food still to keep your energy flowing, to keep your body keeping you warm. Food is very important. Energy is very important. So yeah, next list on the 10 essentials: extra layers. Especially this goes for the spring, the fall, the winter. Everybody will look at the weather and they'll type in like Hunter, New York, or Elka Park, or Big Indian. It's definitely going to be different down in the bottom of the valley from on the top. So let's say in the winter, it's 30 degrees at the trailhead. Once you get it going above further, it gets colder and colder and colder. So you need to have those extra layers to keep you warm. You need to keep that body warm, and to keep that energy flowing through your body as well. Sometimes, I've gone out on hikes where it's just like, oh, it's going to be, I love hiking in the winter, so sometimes it says 15 degrees, at the Big Indian or something like that, when I'm going to go hike Balsam Lake Mountain or something like that. But then I also go online and check mountainforecast.com, and it shows you what the potential wind speed will be and what the potential wind chill will be. So, base of the mountain, maybe, what is Balsam Lake's probably around 2,000 feet. It might be 15 degrees, but, up at the top, on top of the tower, it might be a good negative 15 degrees. So, you might start out with just, a t-shirt and a long sleeve and maybe a regular shell jacket. So, of course, once you start going up, you'll maybe take the shell jacket off and you'll be fine. But once you start getting up further, you get up to the top, it's going to start getting cold when you're standing there doing nothing. So you throw maybe a puffy jacket in there, or an extra long shirt to keep yourself warm. And I've found several times, you're going up, you're shedding those layers. But once you're up at the top, you're starting to get really cold because those layers are now drenched in your sweat. So you could have those extra layers, take those layers off, put on a new layers, stay warm. That's what you want. You want layers to stay warm and to keep that blood flowing through your body. You don't want to get hypothermia. Hypothermia is not fun. So yeah, next on the list is a multi-tool. So of course they got a Swiss Army knife, stuff like that, to help you maybe cut things. Knives are very helpful in opening things, or I don't really have much information on a multi-tool except for helping cut things and quite possibly saving your life. I don't know. I'm not big on the multi-tool thing. I do have one. I do carry one, but I haven't really used it since ever. But definitely important to maybe help you later on. Next on the list is navigation. Whether several different types of navigation. GPS system, your phone, which is not really 100% reliable, so don't rely on your phone all the time, please. And another big one is a map and compass. Map and compass is definitely needed on every hike, especially bushwhacks. Of course, there are several trails that intersect, several spur trails, different colored trails. Some of the times you do not want to go on the red trail that is going across Devil's Path, and all of a sudden you hit a blue trail that goes on down to a trailhead. So maps is really, really one of the top three actually. Besides food and water, map is definitely up there for an essential item. Because once again, if you're new out in the Catskills or anywhere, a map will get you from point A to point B and then back. So definitely get yourself a map. $17. Come on, $17 is nothing. And the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference maps are waterproof, and I believe they said they're shred proof or something. I guess you should probably get that out and check it out. But they're very, very durable. I have 3 different editions. I think a 2016, 2018, and a 2020, I believe, with a new updated elevation. So, and then along with the maps should be a compass, because compass, can save your life, especially when you're lost and you've lost the trail. Having the compass will definitely guide you back to either where you parked or where you last left yourself. Definitely go to a online class of map and compass, or a local class of map and compass to get to know of using a map and compass. Plus, you can go on the Catskill 3500 hikes of bushwhacking, and their leaders will definitely teach you how to use a map and compass. It's tough to teach over a podcast how to use a map and compass. It's definitely a hands-on experience that you need to learn how to use a map and compass. I use my map and compass once in a while when I'm definitely not confident on the good old phone that I have, and especially when it's colder outside. It's easier to have the map or the compass right around your neck, having a bearing, and then just opening it up and finding that, closing it back up, instead of opening your phone, getting the battery drained because it's cold outside, taking your gloves off, all that crap. So definitely get yourself a map and compass. Total cost of a map and compass, probably not even near $30. So easy stuff. And then get yourself to a class, or go look online on YouTube and start learning how to use it, because it's actually a really great, essential skill to learn, especially when you're hiking solo. Let's get to the next 10 essentials. Illumination. This is very important when hiking solo and when hiking in general. Illumination is huge. Most of search and rescues involve a lost hiker at nighttime that has no illumination, and they've only relied on their phone, and then their phone's battery dies out. Most of the search and rescues have been because of illumination. So usually I go online and I get an expensive headlamp. The lumens, you can get the highest amount of lumens that you want, basically. The higher the better, of course. Just don't get too high that it's going to blind your friend if you're hiking with your friend. I've had that several times, because being on search and rescue, having the brightest always helps with other situations, but it also doesn't help when you're shining that bright light into the person's eyes across from you. So go online, get yourself they have definitely put out better headlamps than when I got them, 6 years ago. And I've upgraded. They have actually rechargeable headlamps. I don't know how reliable those are. You need hopefully the batteries are a base of lithium, so they last longer in the cold. But I carry 2 headlamps with me at all times. I always have the batteries outside of them, so they're not running at all and draining the battery. So headlamps, I forgot how many lumens mine is. I know it sounds weird, but it's 40,000 lumens. I think one of them, and the other one's 20. So that's for search and rescue. I always carry those every single time I have my headlamps with me. You never know when you're going to run into a situation of where you need a headlamp at night, or somebody else needs a headlamp. It's always always prepared for 2 people for some reason. Let's move next on the list, an emergency shelter. This could be anything from a tent to an emergency blanket. Emergency blanket is a small, very lightweight item that you can carry with you that you can that shields you from the elements of rain, snow, sun, stuff like that. Definitely a great thing to carry when you're out on the trail. Very, very simple, very small, not even the size of your hand, and it's very lightweight. So I carry it with me all the time. Once again, being a SAR team member, I always carry it just in case somebody needs help. Online, those emergency shelters usually go from $20 to $40. Once again, the more expensive, the better. And then usually the more expensive, the more lightweight it is. But still, anything could help you in a tight situation, in a tight bind when you're in the winter, in the spring, or even in the fall, to save your life. So check it out, emergency shelters, only like $20 online. Next up is on the 10 essentials is first aid kit. There's very many different types of first aid kits out there. You could make your own first aid kit. We had to make ours for search and rescue, and it's pretty heavy, but you know what? That is definitely something I'm worth paying for, to have the better kit for the crazier situation, per se. So first aid kits can range from usually $25 to up to $300. Once again, probably the more expensive, the larger it's going to be, but the more variety it's going to be, basically. There's definitely several things extra we have to put in there for search and rescue, but most of the stuff in a first aid kit is usually easy stuff like bandages, gauze pads, antiseptic wipes, cotton tips, moleskin, burn cream, maybe a finger splint once in a while. Elastic bandage is definitely going to be in there. Sometimes an instant ice pack, some EMT shears, duct tape might be in there. Safety pins will definitely be in there. Gloves, some plastic gloves. Stuff like that. Anti-itch cream, aspirin, ibuprofen, rehydration tablets might be in there. It depends. Once again, it depends on what you're looking for. If you just want the basic, or do you want the experienced, amazing stuff. Once again, everything on a first aid kit I have to carry because it's just what I have to do. So I carry that most of the time if I'm going on a 3,500 hike or a little bit riskier hike. I will take the first aid kit, even though mine is freaking abnormously heavy. But hey, that'll happen. All right, next on the list of the 10 essentials is a fire starting kit. So usually you'll see these online. It could anywhere be, from a lighter, waterproof matches, strike-on box matches. There are other ones called magnesium strikes that could help you start a fire. And then you could also have other stuff in there that you can make yourself. Like what I use is I've taken, I know it sounds really weird, lint from the dryer and dryer sheets from the dryer. I've soaked them in Vaseline, and then I put them inside of a plastic bag, and that will the Vaseline keeps the flame going a little bit longer for you to build your fire a little bit better and to get things going. Like I said, sometimes the more expensive is the better. You can have several varieties of fire starting kit. Simple stuff like I said, waterproof strike-on match, or you can go with magnesium shear where you just strike it together. It's a strike, and then it'll create a spark, and then the spark will light something on fire. If you have, leaves or some really good kindle or something like that. But once again, for search and rescue, I have my own little kit set up, and I have a bunch of strike-on box matches that are waterproof, and I have the magnesium strike that you use, and then I also have the lint in the dryer sheets soaked in Vaseline, and that'll get your fire going. So yeah, that's one of the the second to last one, and the last one is heat and sun protection. So, once again, basic stuff. Heat and sun protection like sunblock, lip gloss that has got some SPF on it. Once again, the higher SPF, the better protection somewhat. That's what everybody says. But I've heard different stories, and I forgot what I heard, but I heard that anything above like 15 SPF is all a bunch of BS, and it just wears off a little bit quicker, so it doesn't work as better. But check that out online. I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes, and I don't know where I heard it from. Sometimes I forget what I did yesterday, so yeah. But that's the last of the 10 essentials, heat and sun protection. So we'll go over them really quick. 10 essentials: water, food, extra layers, multi-tool, navigation, illumination, emergency shelter, first aid kit, fire starting kit, and heat and sun protection. So usually when I'm in an interview, I ask people questions and stuff, and I don't have anybody to ask questions to. So when I ask myself questions, what do I think about when I hike alone? Usually while on the way up in the steep spots, or even just going up like a simple fire tower road, I usually think, why the fuck am I doing this? Most of the time, that's what I'm thinking. Why the hell am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this crap? And usually it's because of the beautiful, stunning view at the top, or when I get to the balsam smell towards the top, or just listening to the sound of some of the birds, like the thrush singing around at me, or just hearing the wind is absolutely breathtaking. But that's what I'm usually thinking while going up, and I'm sweating and I'm panting and everything, is why the fuck am I doing this? Definitely. But that's what one of the things I think about a lot when I'm hiking alone. Another thing I think about is, what's the view going to look like at the top? Is there going to be clouds? Is it going to be sunny? Is it going to be high-flowing winds, so the clouds will be flowing quick and stuff like that? Will I be able to see certain peaks from here? Are they going to be blocked by the clouds? Is something going to be in clouds? It's a lot. I think about that while going up. Think about the trail, check it out and look all around and checking the trail markers, seeing if some of them are from old school or there's some of them that are new. Another thing I think about is the sounds of nature. Like, will I be able to hear the Bicknell thrush when I get up top? Quite possibly. Will I see some good old vultures flying around me? Maybe. Usually think about music in my head. That's a big one. Because I'm a musician and I love music, I'm usually singing something in my head, or I'm usually wondering what's going to be on the playlist on the way home and stuff like that. Most of the time, I'll just be singing a song in my head, or I'll actually sing it out loud. Usually I sing some Steel Panther while going up the mountain, especially on the Tuesday when nobody else is with me, because those are inappropriate songs that you shouldn't sing on the trail, but I still do it. Another thing I think about is there anybody else on the trail? Is there going to be anybody else on the trail? And that's the good thing about hiking on Tuesdays, is there's very rarely anybody else on the trail, and I love it. I do like socializing. I gotta admit, I do like seeing people on the trail and saying hi to them and ask them how their hike was and stuff like that. But usually I'm wondering if there's anybody at the top, like if that one car is parked there, is that person going to be in the top? Checking out the view like I am. One of the other things I also think about while going solo is the next hike. What is my next hike going to be next week? Or, what are we going to do on, next Sunday? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? I mean, those are the things that are usually going on through my head. Mostly, it'll mostly be about music or about the view at the top. Like, I can't wait to see this view. I'm so excited about this view. And then usually on the way down, I'm usually regretting everything because of my knees, my horrible, horrible knees. But I'm also thinking about the next hike and how amazing that hike was. So, and I can't wait to get on the next hike. So yeah, that is my solo hiking experience. I'd have to say we're going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions about hiking solo, get with me. I will give you any information possible. I love hiking solo. I'd love to help out people hiking solo because it is a great experience. You know, you don't always have to do like what I do is bushwhacking solo. I hear a lot of people saying you should never bushwhack solo. I've done it a lot. So you just got to have a lot of confidence and you got to know what you're doing and you got to be safe. That's one of the biggest things while hiking solo is being safe. Not just flying around and taking risk, but being safe is definitely one of the biggest considerations to think about when hiking solo. So, yeah. So that wraps it up. I'd like to thank our sponsors if he ever gets back to me. OER Equipment Rentals, Outdoor Equipment Rentals. I'd like to thank him for maybe sponsoring us. If you need personal low-paid vegan snowshoes, GoPros, snow shovels, anything he might have, check it out. Check it out online. Look up Outdoor Equipment Rentals in Goshen, New York. I'd like to remind people that you can subscribe on any platform. That would be great. Subscribe, give me some feedback. And then also, if you go to my official website, which is itlcatskills.podcastpage.io, that's where you can check out our original real site that I have, which shows the episodes about me, how to contact us, how to subscribe. And there also is a button at the top called Donate to the Show and Buy Us a Coffee. Buy me a coffee. You can just put in any amount you want, 50 cents, 25 cents, $1, whatever. Any bit is great. Any bit, will help along with this. I'm not doing this for free, but you know what? I'm having fun doing it. So if you donate, cool. Thank you very much. If you don't donate, oh well. Doesn't matter. I'm having fun doing this. But yeah. And I would also like to give a shout out to Katrina Weinig again for being our first supporter of the show. So thank you, Katrina, once again. So yeah, that wraps up the night. I hope you all have a good night, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. All right, peace.